Well, it was definitely an exciting debate to watch, and of course it got heated at times, but one of the things we really concentrated on with my next guest was watching not necessarily what they were saying, but how they presented themselves and what their body language was telling us. Suzannah Baum joining us. First of all, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure watching the debate with you, and you really gave me a different perspective on how to watch people and try to read people and see what their body language are telling us. I want to start with hand gestures, because we saw a lot of hand gestures throughout the night. Why do we use hand gestures, first of all, so much?
Well, especially in a debate format like this, where mostly we, the viewers, were able only to see the upper body, the hand gestures and the facial expressions were of utmost importance here. And so, because they are very polished politicians, I believe that they were very aware of the hand gestures that they were using, and they used them for the effect that they were intended.
Right. And so we saw different, different effects throughout the night. Here we see, both Premier Couillard and we see François Legault. He's using, a lot of that, hand into the palm, and the thumbs often came up. Mm-hmm. What does that tell us? What is he trying to present to the viewer there?
Right, like the power thumbs and the bigger gestures. I think it seemed to me he was trying to take the position of the stronger candidate,
okay.
The position of strength, not necessarily aggressive, because I think that's a negative connotation, but he certainly would want to be seen as the strong, powerful candidate in front of his constituents.
Philippe Couillard, I was just, sorry to interrupt, just going to say, watching him, didn't see a lot of hand gestures necessarily from him, as much as maybe we saw from some of the other candidates. Does that tell us something as well?
I think he was very measured and very polished,
okay.
and I think in a case like this, they whether they are coached or whether they decide on their own how far they're going to go with their hand gestures, how much they're going to control themselves. And it seemed to me that Philippe Couillard was quite controlled with himself, as opposed to the strong candidate and Jean-François Lisée, who attempted to both bring the audience in. He had everything across the board. Bring the audience
right.
in. He had, he had the stopping motions. He had this motion.
Yeah, what is that motion exactly?
The
we
triangle.
Saw that from him.
The triangle fingers. It's like I'm hatching a plan. I have a plan, and it's going to be very good and useful plan for all of us.
Right. Manon Massé, again, a little more reserved. You even mentioned to me perhaps because, English isn't a strong point for her. Not a lot of hand gestures from her as well. Is that maybe because she was not as comfortable?
Well, you know what? I'm not sure that she was not that comfortable. I think some of us came in with the perception that she
right.
was not the comfortable one, and yet what I saw tonight was someone who certainly held her own in a second language with energy and enthusiasm. And even if she faltered or one or two words didn't work out, I think that's very forgivable, especially because she really kept the energy up, as they all did.
Yeah, for sure. I was talking about reading statements. We saw them with an opening statement, with a closing statement. The personalities seem to change a bit. When you look at the difference between that and the difference between the actual debating and answering questions, why do we see that?
Well, even when I work with my clients, helping them prepare presentations, if they are to read, when they start reading, the energy just depletes
right.
a little bit. There's a certain personality that all of our candidates here showed, but as soon as you stop getting in your head and start looking down to the paper, your head is down, your eyes are down, and that will just automatically take your energy away.
Right.
So in cases like this, what I would suggest to anyone is read as little as possible, and when you are reading, especially at those points where you are speaking to the audience, where you are saying you, and these are my plans for us moving forward, these are the moments where you have to choose exactly where you look up at the audience. It's the most important.
What about facial expressions? We saw a variety of different facial expressions. What stood out to you?
What stood out? François Legault's eyebrows, angry eyebrows. Again, I think it's a show of power. It's a show of strength. Manon Massé's wide eyes at a certain point, where she was explaining, she was trying to bring her audience in again, but in a very relatable way. So wider eyes, which is the polar opposite of the lowered eyebrows, which is the more strong, assertive
right.
position.
We also saw some posture, too. We saw those shoulders go back a couple of times when François Legault was actually answering questions or even listening to an answer at times.
More, I found when listening to an answer, it wasn't so much that the shoulders went back, it was the whole body leaned away from, in this case, in most cases, it was Philippe Couillard that he leaned away. He would ask him a question, then lean away, almost
Yeah.
not appreciating his response. And something else that I noticed when standing at a lectern, where the legs are, the legs sometimes would cross, or the candidates would lean back on their heel. And these are things typically that I would suggest to any of my clients all the time, is 2 feet on the ground the entire time, so that you look absolutely stable, because that's what your audience needs to see.
Great advice. I'm going to keep that in mind. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank
Don't
you.
go anywhere. More breakfast television coming up right here on City TV.